Vince Carter, a gravity-defying dunker whose body betrayed him long before he wanted to retire. Vince Carter entered the NBA in 1998 as the 5th overall pick, instantly electrifying fans with his jaw-dropping dunks and athleticism. For years, he was the ultimate highlight reel, winning the 2000 dunk contest and becoming the face of the Toronto Raptors. But as the years piled on, the same explosiveness that defined his prime began to fade. By the mid-2010s, Carter's athletic gifts were no longer enough to carry him. Injuries and natural aging reduced his vertical leap, lateral quickness, and scoring efficiency. Yet he adapted, transforming into a savvy three-point shooter and veteran leader. Even so, fans who once watched him soar above everyone else couldn't ignore the physical decline. Carter's story is a dramatic reminder that aging is unavoidable, and even legends must adjust when their bodies no longer match their skills. Tracy McGrady, a scoring wizard whose prime slipped away as his body betrayed him. Tracy McGrady entered the NBA in 1997 as the 9th overall pick, quickly establishing himself as one of the league's most gifted scorers. With silky smooth shooting, incredible length, and highlight reel dunks, McGrady could dominate any defender. He won back-to-back scoring titles in 2002 and 2003 and was a 7-time All-Star. But injuries began to erode his dominance. Hamstrings, knees, and other nagging injuries limited his explosiveness and forced him to reinvent his game. McGrady adapted, using craftiness and basketball IQ, but he was never fully the unstoppable force fans once saw. His story is a bittersweet reminder that talent alone isn't enough. Even the most gifted athletes face the harsh reality that their bodies may betray them, leaving fans to wonder what could have been. Grant Hill, a future face of the NBA whose body broke down far too soon. Grant Hill came into the league in 1994 and looked like the perfect superstar. He was smooth, versatile, and compared to Michael Jordan from day one. Hill could score, rebound, pass, and defend at an elite level, earning Rookie of the Year and making 7 All-Star appearances. In just his first 6 seasons with Detroit, he averaged over 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists, numbers that only a handful of legends have ever reached. But chronic ankle injuries changed everything. Multiple surgeries robbed him of explosiveness and forced him to reinvent his style just to stay on the court. Though he later carved out a solid role as a veteran leader, fans never saw the full version of the superstar he was meant to be. Dwyane Wade, the Flash who once owned the league but couldn't outrun time. Dwyane Wade burst onto the NBA scene in 2003 and quickly became one of the most electrifying guards ever. With fearless drives, acrobatic finishes, and unmatched toughness, he carried the Miami Heat to the 2006 championship, averaging nearly 35 points per game in the finals. For years, Wade was considered the best shooting guard in the league after Kobe. But his relentless style took a toll. Knee surgeries piled up, his explosiveness faded, and his jump shot never became a reliable weapon. By his early 30s, Wade was no longer the same dominant force. Though he remained a Miami legend, his decline came faster than many expected, proving that even icons who burn the brightest often burn out the quickest. Kobe Bryant, the Black Mamba, a legend who fought age like an enemy he could never fully defeat. Kobe Bryant spent 2 decades with the Lakers, carving out one of the greatest careers in NBA history. A 5-time champion, MVP, and 18-time All-Star, he thrived on obsession, discipline, and sheer willpower. But after carrying Los Angeles through countless battles, his body began to betray him. In 2013, Kobe tore his Achilles, an injury that forever altered his game. He returned, but injuries to his shoulder, knees, and back stacked up, robbing him of the athleticism that once made him unstoppable. His shooting percentages dropped, and the Lakers struggled in his final seasons. Yet even as age slowed him, Kobe refused to quit, culminating in his unforgettable 60-point farewell game. His decline was painful to watch, but his exit was nothing short of legendary. LeBron James, the king who ruled for 2 decades, but even kings can't escape Father Time. LeBron James entered the NBA in 2003 with more hype than any player in history. And somehow, he exceeded it. 4 championships, 4 MVPs, the all-time scoring record, and countless finals runs made him a living legend. For years, LeBron seemed invincible, defying age with superhuman conditioning and durability. But as he moved into his late 30s, cracks began to show. Nagging injuries, groin pulls, ankle sprains, and back soreness. started limiting his games played. His once elite defense faded, and though still dominant offensively, his explosiveness isn't what it was a decade ago. The King still shines, but his minutes are carefully managed, and his body requires more rest than ever. Watching LeBron age is shocking. It feels like watching time finally win against basketball's most durable superstar. Paul Pierce, the truth on the court, but the ending of his career told a very different story. Paul Pierce was the heart of the Boston Celtics, a clutch scorer who carried the franchise through tough years and later won a championship alongside Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen in 2008. Known as the truth, Pierce was never the fastest or most athletic, but his skill, footwork, and toughness made him unstoppable in his prime. However, as he moved into his late 30s, age caught up quick. His legs slowed, his shot lost consistency, and defensively he became a liability. After leaving Boston, his time with the Nets, Wizards, and Clippers looked nothing like the hero Celtics fans adored. By the end, he was barely playable, and his legendary Celtics image was overshadowed by a rough decline. Pierce aged out of the game faster than anyone expected.
Who do you think aged the worst in NBA history? Drop your guess in the comments before the next story. It might surprise you.
Carmelo Anthony, one of the smoothest scorers ever, but his decline showed how even legends can't outrun time.
Carmelo Anthony was a pure bucket getter, a player who could score from anywhere, mid-range, post, three, you name it. Drafted in 2003, Melo quickly became a superstar with Denver, then built his legacy with the New York Knicks. For years, he was among the NBA's most feared offensive weapons, averaging over 20 points per game for 17 straight seasons. But Melo's game was built on isolation scoring, and as the NBA shifted to faster pace, threes, and defense-first lineups, he struggled to adapt. His athleticism faded, his defense was exposed, and coaches began to question if he could still contribute. Suddenly, teams pushed him out of rotations, leaving him without a contract. Once a superstar, Melo's late career was a tough, unwanted fight to stay relevant.
Chris Bosh, a champion, an all-star, but his career ended far earlier than anyone expected. Chris Bosh was the definition of versatility. A lefty big man with shooting touch, rebounding skills, and defensive presence, he was the face of the Toronto Raptors before joining LeBron James and Dwyane Wade in Miami. With the Heat, Bosh sacrificed numbers for championships, hitting clutch shots and locking down defenses in the playoffs. But just when it seemed his career would extend well into his 30s, tragedy struck. Bosh was diagnosed with serious blood clots, a condition so dangerous it forced him off the court. Doctors refused to clear him, and at just 31 years old, he was effectively retired. From a perennial all-star to a medical red flag, Bosh's career didn't decline slowly. It ended overnight, leaving fans wondering what more he could have done.
Dirk Nowitzki, a legend, a champion, but even greatness can't escape the fight against time.
Dirk Nowitzki changed basketball forever. With his 7-foot frame and deadly one-legged fadeaway, he became the greatest shooting big man the game had ever seen. He carried the Dallas Mavericks for 2 decades, peaking in 2011 when he led them to an unforgettable championship, defeating LeBron James and the Miami Heat. But as the years passed, Father Time caught up. Dirk's knees slowed him down, his defense weakened, and his once fluid mobility faded. By his final seasons, the legend could barely run the floor, often playing limited minutes just for farewell tours. Fans still cheered his loyalty and heart, but the decline was clear. From unstoppable MVP to a veteran struggling against age, Dirk's final years showed even icons aren't immune to time.
Shaquille O'Neal, the most dominant force in NBA history, but even Superman wasn't built to last forever. Shaquille O'Neal was a nightmare for defenders. A 7'1", 325-pound giant who combined size, speed, and power like no one else.
In his prime, Shaq shattered backboards, bullied all-star centers, and delivered 3 straight Finals MVPs with the Lakers. But dominance came at a price. His body began breaking down in his 30s. Knees, hips, and feet couldn't handle the weight anymore. By the time he joined Miami, Phoenix, Cleveland, and finally Boston, he was a shadow of himself. The explosiveness was gone. Conditioning slipped, and what was once unstoppable turned into slow post-ups and injuries. Shaq still flashed brilliance, but the big diesel eventually ran out of gas, reminding fans that even the strongest big men eventually break down.
Allen Iverson, the answer to every defender's problem, until age delivered the final question he couldn't solve.
Allen Iverson was the definition of fearless. At just 6 feet tall, he attacked the rim against giants, crossed up legends, and won the 2001 MVP by carrying the 76ers to the finals. His speed, quickness, and heart made him unstoppable in his prime. But that same reckless style came with a price. Years of crashing into big men destroyed his body. By his early 30s, the burst was gone, and without it, Iverson struggled to adapt. He wasn't built to be a role player, and his refusal to come off the bench pushed him out of the league faster than expected. The man who once electrified arenas became a cautionary tale of how fast the superstar's shine can fade.
Kevin Durant, the unstoppable scorer, whose prime left fans wondering how long it could truly last.
Kevin Durant entered the league as a lanky, unstoppable scorer, quickly rising to MVP status with his silky jumper and unmatched versatility. He could score from anywhere, guard multiple positions, and change the game in a single possession. But as he aged, injuries began to take their toll. A torn Achilles in 2019, followed by ankle issues, slowed the Durant who once played 40-plus minutes with ease. While his skills remained elite, the durability that defined his early career started fading. Teams adapted, defenses adjusted, and the relentless scoring streaks became shorter. Durant's story is a lesson. Even the most gifted players are vulnerable to the natural decay of time, and what looks unstoppable in youth can falter as the years catch up.
Russell Westbrook, the relentless engine whose ferocity didn't age as gracefully as his explosiveness. Russell Westbrook entered the NBA as a whirlwind, a triple-double machine who redefined what an explosive point guard could do. With relentless energy, he attacked the rim, pushed tempo, and dominated every stat sheet. But as the seasons piled up, the toll of his high-octane style became evident. Speed slowed, driving lanes tightened, and injuries began to accumulate. Once unstoppable bursts became shorter, and recovery took longer. Despite his effort never waning, the efficiency and sharpness that marked his early career declined, highlighting how extreme athletic reliance can shorten peak performance. Westbrook's story is a dramatic reminder. Talent and heart aren't immune to time, and the very style that made a star can accelerate the aging process. We've seen 12 stars fade, but the next 3, their careers were destroyed in ways you could never imagine. Don't blank. Ray Allen, the sharpshooter whose legs didn't keep up with his deadly accuracy.
Ray Allen's career was defined by precision, from deep threes to clutch moments. A 9-time All-Star, Allen's smooth stroke and tireless work ethic made him one of the most feared shooters in NBA history. But as years passed, his body began to betray him. Speed off the dribble slowed, lateral movement tightened, and nagging injuries crept in, subtly reducing his ability to create space and get clean looks. While his fundamentals remained impeccable, the athletic explosiveness that once allowed him to separate from defenders faded, changing the way he impacted games. Even in the playoffs, Allen relied more on positioning and experience than raw athleticism. His story is a reminder that age affects even the most skilled players, transforming stars into veterans whose edge comes from mind, not muscle.
Jason Kidd, the floor general whose court vision never aged, but his body quietly did. Jason Kidd's career was built on elite passing, rebounding, and leadership. A 10-time All-Star and NBA champion, Kidd dominated as a point guard through basketball IQ and toughness. Yet, as he entered his mid-30s, the wear and tear of constant drives, defense, and full-court pressure began to show. Speed and lateral quickness declined, and injuries slowed his once relentless motor. Kidd adapted, focusing on mid-range shooting, smart rotations, and mentoring younger teammates. While he remained a leader on and off the court, the explosive playmaking that defined his early years became rarer. Kidd's story highlights how even the sharpest minds in basketball are bound by the physical limits of aging, proving that experience can expend impact but can't fully replace youth.
Chauncey Billups, the Mr. Big Shot, whose prime brilliance eventually faded with age.
Chauncey Billups built his reputation as one of the most clutch guards in NBA history. A 5-time All-Star and Finals MVP, his leadership and precision from deep defined the Detroit Pistons championship era. Yet as Billups aged, his explosiveness and lateral quickness began to decline. Injuries started creeping in, reducing his minutes and limiting the aggressive drives that made him elite. He adapted by focusing on spot-up shooting, veteran leadership, and basketball IQ, but the body could no longer match the mind. Billups' later seasons were marked by respect rather than highlight real plays, a reminder that even legends can't stop the natural decline. His story underscores the harsh reality of aging in the NBA. Skill endures, but athleticism eventually fades.
Steve Nash, the wizardly point guard whose prime brilliance eventually clashed with the ticking clock of age.
Steve Nash dazzled the NBA with his vision, precision passing, and uncanny basketball IQ. A 2-time MVP, Nash orchestrated offenses with a style that made him a magician on the court. Yet, as years passed, even his legendary conditioning couldn't fully counter the wear and tear of professional basketball. His legs began to slow, injuries lingered, and the lightning-quick drives that defined his early career became fewer. Nash adapted, leaning on mid-range shooting, veteran leadership, and strategic playmaking to stay relevant. While his mind still read defenses like a book, the body's decline was inevitable. Nash's later seasons were marked by respect and mentorship rather than dominance, proving that even genius on the court must eventually yield to age.
Paul George, the two-way superstar whose peak brilliance slowly collided with the harsh reality of aging.
Paul George entered the league as a rising star, known for elite defense, smooth scoring, and clutch moments. In his prime with Indiana and later with Oklahoma City, George showcased all-star talent on both ends of the floor. But as seasons piled on, injuries and heavy minutes began to take a toll. His explosive first step dulled slightly, lateral quickness on defense slowed, and recovery between games became harder. Even with skill and basketball IQ intact, the body reminded him of its limits. George adapted, relying more on mid-range shooting and veteran savvy, but the speed and verticality that defined his prime began to fade. His later years emphasize how age reshapes a superstar, forcing adjustments and redefining what dominance can look like.
James Harden, the scoring machine whose flashy prime eventually met the slow grind of aging.
James Harden burst onto the NBA scene as a dynamic scorer and playmaker, known for step-back threes, crafty drives, and elite vision. In his prime with Oklahoma City and Houston, Harden carried offenses and redefined perimeter scoring. But as years went by, the wear and tear started catching up. Explosiveness off the dribble lessened, lateral quickness slowed, and the relentless minutes of heavy usage seasons left their mark on his legs and body. Harden adapted by becoming even more perimeter-oriented, relying on step-back threes and clever angles rather than athleticism. While still effective, the Harden of later seasons reflects a shift from sheer physical dominance to skill, timing, and basketball IQ, showing how even the most gifted stars must evolve as age reshapes their game.
Jimmy Butler, the fierce competitor whose prime now battles the quiet erosion of age.
Jimmy Butler entered the NBA as a tough, defensive-minded guard and steadily transformed into a franchise cornerstone. Known for clutch performances, relentless defense, and a fierce work ethic, Butler's prime with Chicago and Miami showcased his ability to carry teams in high-stakes moments. However, as the seasons piled on, the toll of heavy minutes, physical wear, and playoff grind began to show. Explosiveness on drives slightly decreased, recovery time stretched, and his body required more care and adaptation. Butler adjusted by sharpening his mid-range shot, improving court vision, and leaning on strategic positioning. While still a top-tier player, Butler's evolution highlights the reality of aging in the NBA. Even elite stars must refine skill and intelligence as athleticism naturally fades.
Klay Thompson, the Splash brother whose prime now fights against time and injuries.
Klay Thompson entered the NBA as a sharpshooting guard for the Golden State Warriors, earning fame for his incredible three-point accuracy and lockdown defense. His prime years saw him dominate alongside Stephen Curry, winning 3 championships and setting records for single-quarter scoring. But years of deep playoff runs, coupled with major injuries like his torn ACL and Achilles, began to reshape his game. Thompson's speed and lateral quickness have slightly declined, forcing him to rely more on catch-and-shoot skill, basketball IQ, and positioning, rather than explosive drives. Despite these challenges, he remains a critical offensive threat and defensive presence. Thompson's story is a reminder that even elite shooters must adapt as age and injuries chip away at the physical tools that once defined their dominance.
Chris Paul, the floor general whose prime now battles the inevitable tick of time.
Chris Paul entered the NBA as a fiery point guard with the New Orleans Hornets, instantly known for his elite court vision, lightning-quick hands, and leadership. His prime years featured multiple All-Star selections, assist leader awards, and a reputation as one of the smartest, most clutch players in league history. But as the seasons piled up, injuries and the physical toll of constant high-level play began affecting his explosiveness and stamina. While still orchestrating offenses with unmatched precision, Paul now relies more on craftiness, anticipation, and experience rather than sheer athleticism. Despite aging, he remains a transformative leader on any team, guiding younger stars and controlling tempo. His career is a masterclass in adaptability, proving that skill and intelligence can extend relevance even as physical prime fades.
Rudy Gay, a high-flying scorer whose prime slipped faster than fans expected.
Rudy Gay entered the NBA in 2006 as the 8th overall pick by the Memphis Grizzlies, immediately known for his explosive athleticism and ability to score from anywhere. In his early years, Gay dazzled with acrobatic finishes, mid-range shooting, and highlight reel dunks. He earned a reputation as one of the most athletic wings in the league, capable of taking over games. But as seasons passed, injuries and wear and tear began impacting his explosiveness and consistency. What once was a dominant scorer became a player who relied more on craft, spacing, and basketball IQ. Even as Gay aged, he contributed significantly with leadership and scoring off the bench. His story is a reminder that athletic gifts fade, but experience and adaptability can still make a player valuable.
Julius Randle, a powerhouse forward whose prime showed flashes of dominance but struggled with consistency. Julius Randle entered the NBA in 2014 as the 7th overall pick by the Los Angeles Lakers, quickly known for his strength, rebounding, and ability to attack the rim. Randle's early years showed promise, with impressive scoring bursts and relentless energy.
However, injuries and inconsistent shooting slowed his growth, preventing him from fully cementing himself as a top-tier star during his initial seasons. After moving to the New York Knicks, Randle found a resurgence, winning Most Improved Player honors and leading the team with high-efficiency scoring. Still, his story reflects the challenges of aging within the league, the physical toll, evolving role, and high expectations. Randle's journey illustrates how talent alone isn't enough. Health, opportunity, and adaptation define longevity.
LaMarcus Aldridge, a master of mid-range and post moves, whose career ended sooner than fans hoped.
LaMarcus Aldridge entered the NBA in 2006 as the second overall pick, originally selected by the Chicago Bulls, but quickly traded to the Portland Trail Blazers. Known for his silky mid-range jumper, fundamental post moves, and scoring consistency, Aldridge became the backbone of Portland's offense for over a decade. He earned 7 All-Star selections and was praised as one of the league's most dependable big men. Yet, heart-related issues forced Aldridge to step away in 2021, cutting short what many believed could have been several more years of elite play. Even with a brief comeback attempt with the Brooklyn Nets, lingering health concerns prevented him from returning fully. Aldridge's story shows that talent and professionalism sometimes can't outlast the body's limits.
Zach Randolph, a bruising power forward whose prime faded faster than anyone expected.
Zach Randolph entered the NBA in 2001 as the 19th overall pick by the Portland Trail Blazers. Known for his powerful post moves, tenacious rebounding, and scoring touch, Randolph earned the nickname Zebo for his physical dominance inside. He made 2 All-Star teams and played a crucial role in Memphis Grizzlies' grit and grind era, helping lead them deep into the playoffs. However, as he aged, his athleticism began to decline and injuries took a toll on his body. Knee and back issues slowed him, reducing his effectiveness on both ends of the floor. Despite his experience and savvy, he could no longer dominate the paint the way he once did. Randolph's journey highlights how even a fierce, durable player eventually faces the harsh realities of age and wear.
Marc Gasol, a skilled center whose prime slowly slipped away, leaving fans wondering what could have been.
Marc Gasol entered the NBA in 2007 as the 48th overall pick by the Los Angeles Lakers, but was traded to the Memphis Grizzlies, where he became the defensive anchor and brain of the grit and grind era. Known for his high basketball IQ, precise passing, and shot-blocking ability, Gasol earned 3 All-Star selections and the 2013 Defensive Player of the Year award. However, as he aged, injuries and declining mobility started to affect his production. Foot and knee problems slowed him down, making it difficult to keep up with younger, more explosive centers. Despite his skills and leadership, Gasol's later years couldn't match his peak dominance. His career shows how even a cerebral, talented big man eventually faces the limits of age and wear.
Anthony Davis, a dominant big man whose body betrayed him just when he was reaching superstardom.
Anthony Davis entered the NBA in 2012 as the first overall pick, instantly known for his shot blocking, rebounding, and scoring versatility. Nicknamed the Brow, Davis could dominate both ends of the floor, earning multiple All-Star selections and leading the Lakers to the 2020 championship. But injuries began haunting him early, with recurring knee, groin, and shoulder problems limiting his court time. Even at his peak, fans saw flashes of brilliance interrupted by physical setbacks. The injuries not only affected his stats, but also his ability to sustain momentum for the Lakers' title runs. Anthony Davis's career highlights how an elite athlete's prime can be defined not just by skill, but by the body's fragile limits.
Dwight Howard, a dominant force in the paint whose prime fizzled faster than anyone expected. Dwight Howard entered the NBA in 2004 as the first overall pick, instantly imposing with his athleticism, shot blocking, and rebounding. Nicknamed Superman, he led the Orlando Magic to the 2009 Finals and earned multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards.
But as Howard aged, injuries, back issues, and inconsistent play began to take a toll. His explosiveness declined, free throw struggles worsened, and his dominance inside faded. Even his championship quest with the Lakers was hampered by physical setbacks and mismatched fit. Dwight Howard's story is a stark reminder. Peak athleticism doesn't last forever, and even the most physically gifted players face a steep decline when the body can no longer perform at elite levels.
These players gave everything they had, night after night, but time, injuries, and choices didn't always give back. Remember their greatness, honor their effort, and don't let their stories fade. If you love NBA history and the legends who shaped it, hit subscribe. There's so much more waiting for you.